Welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're listening, chances are you want to create happiness around you and thrive in your life. We're glad you're here and you've come to the right place. This podcast will inspire and motivate you to not merely survive your recovery journey, we'll give you the tools to build or strengthen your foundation to thrive and flourish in your life. Each week, we'll come together as a community to have authentic conversations around addiction, recovery, and what matters. Growth and progress, not perfection. All while developing positive habits for you to utilize in your life. To learn more, please visit positiverecoverymd.com to sign up to receive the daily positive interventions that we'll review, as well as gain access to exclusive Positive Recovery content available only to Positive Recovery MD listeners. All right, let's get started.
So today we have two friends, Julie and I have known for a long time. And whenever we have friends on, I always feel kind of goofy doing the introduction because to me, it just seems a little bit more detached than normal. So I'm going to just say a little bit about each of you. And then you guys say who you are, what you do. If you could do like a brief positive introduction so we really get to know you. If you're willing, that'd be great. So we have Casey and Kira Arrillaga. Casey and Kira worked at the Windmill location of a facility we used to be at, and they dug into positive recovery curriculum like no other. Kira was not licensed at the time, but like her sophistication kind of convinced us that, okay, yeah, on a unique individual basis, she's like sophisticated enough to be able to apply it. So we sort of made room for her, and I kind of like that she brought that to the table. Now she is an LCDC, so she's doing some coaching and she'll tell you about that. And Casey, really smart. I was on your podcast, or I don't know if it dropped yet, but so he's got a podcast. He's a counselor, master social work, helped me to, I guess, for lack of a better term, like release the reins a little bit on the curriculum. I was so worried about its integrity that I kind of lost sight of everybody's interpretation. And I kind of like, thank you for that gift. That was a really awesome experience. We fought about it, but then I saw, okay, wait, he's right. It's all good. So that was it.
Yeah, you need to learn from this fine example.
That's fun. And that's what's going to be so great about today's podcast for our listeners. Having Casey and Kira here together will bring a little bit of that dynamic of kind of family and relationship as well. And the first time I met Casey was out in Taos, New Mexico. We were running a treatment center for young men in San Cristobal. And it was just, right away, as soon as I met Casey, it kind of clicked. Like his love for what he was doing, the passion that he had for helping people in recovery was just so evident in everything that he did. And also what really impressed me about Casey was his love for his wife and his daughter. And I just always remember that piece and how he brought that to the work that he did with the young men and their families.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to shout just back to both of you guys. Julie, of course, I met you first. You are singularly the reason I'm in Texas at all. You were the one who talked me into it. Seriously, the very last day that treatment center, we were concluding our work there. And you said, Casey, you need to come to Texas. And I'm like, Julie, why would I go to Texas? And believe me, you come down here, you will grow like in no other place, which has turned out to be absolutely true. And I had worked just long enough with you in the setting up there to really know how much I could trust your opinion. And so that sold me on the idea of coming down here. And I'm so grateful for that. Thank you. And through that, I got to meet Dr. Powers. And, when I came down to Texas, I wasn't thinking like, someday what we'll do is we'll start working together on this, positive recovery thing. But that has been an absolute gift. And what a joy to be able to work with you and argue with you. I don't remember much arguing because it's positive.
Well, it wasn't. Differing of opinions. It wasn't really arguing, but
there was a lot of really just fun dialogue, and I really loved working with both of you. And I'm glad that we get to do this and continue our relationship.
Yes, and Julie is also the reason I am here because even though I did not want to come to Texas, sorry Texas, I didn't. It's true. I'm stuck with this guy. I just can't seem to get away from him. No matter how I try, he's my person.
It's true.
So I came with him. And through that, when this was all starting out, I was grieving the loss of a musical career that I'd been very passionate about. And it hadn't quite taken flight. And I did not know what to do with my life. I had been working on this for over 20 years and it didn't take off. And Casey was very passionate about addiction counseling. And we had already said no to coming down to Texas. And then the boss called and said, well, what does your wife do? He said, well, she like organizes things and, and she's very good at what she does, but we'll find something for her. And so I worked as basically a tech for 2 years, which I was mediocre at, and finally got into the department for which I was hired, missions. And I got to work with the clients. And that's when I really fell in love with the recovery field.
And everybody else who knew her said, but you really should be a counselor.
They did. They kept saying that.
Now you have it.
Yeah, I finally went back. I went back at 52 and finished my practicum in March. And the day after my 54th birthday, 7 months after I finished my coursework, I got my LCDCI.
Awesome. Well, congrats, dude. I'm sure you're doing great work. So, Casey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm going to say that recently I had an opportunity in a recovery fellowship to tell my story. And they said, can you just shoot out a quick bio real quick? And Kira actually got the email and I was at work. So she wrote the bio. So I'm going to quote her introduction, which was beautiful, which said that given Casey's intellect in childhood, he probably should have been a serial killer, but instead he turned into a recovering addict, and let him tell you why. So
Nice
that was
short.
Beautiful. Nice, short, to the point. And that's how I got introduced for the Texas conference. So yeah, no, I grew up in funky circumstances. I will say some of the stuff that I've learned from working with both of you, but especially around the positive recovery program. Early on, I showed a lot of perseverance and a lot of hope. And those two things often came across as, sort of like cheerful cynicism or pig-headedness or something like that. But I can recognize the underlying strengths now looking back, which a lot of times it is easier in hindsight to look back and say, oh, here's the strengths I was demonstrating. Because at the time I felt like I was kind of slogging through, but I was always slogging towards something. Like I had this idea from about 10 years old on that things could get better if I worked on my part. Now, it did not occur to me for another 10 years after that to ask anyone for help. I wasn't really good at that piece. I was just like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to push through. I'm going to. About 10 years after that, so when I'm about 20 or so, I met the fine woman sitting next to me. One of my only criteria at that point, in fact, it was pretty much by singular criterion that I kind of knew out loud in looking for a partner, was somebody who was willing to work on themselves. So as much as there were all kinds of subconscious and other things that I was looking for, that was like the big thing, is I want somebody who's willing to work on themselves and work on the relationship. And with my kind of 20-year-old optimism was like, well, if we have that, we can get through anything. And here we are 32 years later to say like, well, it worked out. There are certainly elements of luck and good fortune and privilege and all kinds of things that go in there. But that basic underlying optimism and perseverance, just saying like, well, we can keep working on it. And it will. About 10 years after that, I had another big personal moment in coming into recovery. And the thing about meeting Kira is that she really brilliantly said, well, we should get help with this. Let's go see a counselor. And that was something that did not cross my mind, nor was I terribly excited about, because I was actually really afraid that said counselor would see right through me and then expose all of my flaws to this young woman that I was falling in love with. And she would look around and go like, well, we're out. Luckily, it did not go that way. So I got that counseling experience, but I was always holding some stuff back. There were some things that I was not going to talk about with the counselor, or if I did, I was going to phrase them in certain ways, all this kind of thing. And about once a year, we were seeing her for 6 years, first 6 years of our relationship. And about once a year, she would bring up something about addiction. And my sort of foundational bottom line addiction stuff is around sex and love. And so she would say, oh, I was working with this client, sex addiction, blah, blah, blah. And I would go, oh, that's really interesting. Okay, well, cool. Thank you for telling me about that. But I would just blow it off because it had nothing to do with me. Well, when I hit 30, so here we are, 10 years, 10 years, and 10 years. So 10 years old, 20 years old. So now 30 years old, it became very evident that I did have that problem. It was probably evident to lots of other people earlier than that, but I didn't have a name for it. And it wasn't something that I was looking to get help with because I didn't think that it was fixable. And so I went and saw a different counselor because we had stopped seeing the first counselor a few years back. And the new counselor, within about, I think the first 5 or 10 minutes of the session, said, have you ever heard of sex addiction? And I was like, no, but now that you've said that out loud, not only have I heard of it, but I know that's me. But it was a terrifying thought So this is where the perseverance and hope really got put to the test, because she gave me a book to read and I started reading the book and it was terrifying. My acting actually got worse for a few weeks because I was pushing back against it. And then Kira turned to me at one point and said, I don't know what's going on, but what's going on? And I just started to come clean, like for the first time. And in that, she said, well, better go find one of those meetings we keep hearing about. And that started my journey into recovery. And so I started accepting help on a different level and started exploring the aspect of humility that I'd been trying to avoid all that time. And in doing that, of course, found initially a lot of depression and fear and terror. Over time, of course, things just kept getting better and better and better. It's the same experience I had with therapy, because when I went in, I didn't want to do it. But after a while, I have to go like, well, I got to admit, things keep getting better when I do this. And so I started to grab onto it and get into it. And at that point, I didn't have any thought like I want to be at the other end of this and, helping other people with this. I was just thinking I want to save my marriage and get to raise my kid and stay out of prison, nice things like that. I just kept rolling with it. When we moved to New Mexico, the job that I thought I was going to get never materialized. And so I was actually going back and forth between the Los Angeles area where we're from, where we were trying to sell our house. Kira was doing most of the work on that because I'm going back and forth to New Mexico trying to set up, shop with New Life. Somebody, ironically, when I was in California, someone from New Mexico called my mother-in-law or something like that, said, hey, there's this place and you get young men up in the morning and you give them medications. Do you think you could do that? And I'm like, does it pay money? Because right now I've got a house. The stock market or the housing market is tumbling. I mean, our neighborhood's in free fall. Almost everything has for sale sign on it. So whatever it is, I'll go do that. And of course, in the interview, the guy says, do you know anything about recovery? And I'm like, in fact, I do. At that point, I'd been in recovery for a bit. I'd had some ups and downs, but at that point, I think I had about 2 years continuously sober. Said, well, I got to let you know, it's like sex addiction stuff. And the guy goes, oh yeah, hey, me too. Like, let's go meet the boss. We're going to get you a job. And so bingo, I was in. Now, along the way, I figured out that I really needed to stop drinking. So I joined another recovery fellowship for that. And then later I figured out that I'd really been affected by family patterns of other people's addiction of various stripes. My birth parents both had sex addiction stuff going on. My adoptive dad had alcohol stuff going on. So I joined another recovery fellowship for that. And then every once in a while, I complain about finances, and sponsor in one program would say, well, there's another program for money. And I go like, oh, that's nice. Same routine, right? Here, you think I would have learned by now. And I'm kind of going, oh, it's interesting that exists. Thanks for letting me know. Move on. But after about 3 or 4 years of that, I went like, well, let me check that program out, which completely revolutionized my financial life. So one by one, I don't know if there's another program on the horizon. I'm kind of crossing my fingers not. But if there is, I'll go in kicking and screaming, and that it'll make my life much better. Along the lines, having taken that job where I was waking young men up and getting the medications. Of course, it was a treatment center. I didn't know anything about the treatment field. But after about 6 months or a year, somewhere in there, the boss said, you know what? You should go back to school and be a counselor. And I thought, man, school has so often not panned out. I'd been to like 5 schools at that point. Maybe 6, I think 5. Nothing had really come of it. I could have a whole bunch of stickers in the back of my car and cross each one out to all the schools I'd tried and dropped out of. But he said the magic words of I'll pay for half. I'm like, well, if you're going to pay for half of it. And Kira and I had like a serious discussion about this. Like, I don't know, man, one more shot at school, more tuition, all this kind of stuff. It seemed like a good idea. And so that started me into it. And here I am. Finally graduated at 48. And I got to call that original counselor from way back when, from 32 years ago, and said, well, I finally graduated with my master's in social work and I'm 48 years old. And she goes, oh, honey, I was 48 when I graduated. And I got to talk to her earlier this week, I guess last week, technically, since it's Sunday. And she is turning 90 next year. Next month. In November, she turns 90. She's still in practice. She's still seeing clients. And we did a session over the phone. It was amazing. It was like coming home. But it solidified. She'd already been my hero, but it really solidified, like, that's my hero. That's where I want to end up. It's just, I will hopefully be in a position to help people until I am out of time, whatever time that turns out to be.
You do that. The experiences that I had, like not only with the clients, but with the staff, like definitely a lighthouse.
I'll go with thank you. That'll be my name, Casey the Lighthouse.
See if it sticks.
We'll see.
Kira, you wanna like he said, she said thing, or
yeah. Actually, I was there. That's what happened. I got into a food program, I'll say, 19 years ago, and got my food cleaned up and my life cleaned up, my spirituality cleaned up. But I'd rather approach my history from a positive recovery perspective, because I was so blown away by the idea of it when you first came out with it when I was working at your facility. I'm one of those lifelong depressives, lifelong suicidal ideation people who came out of the womb shaking my head saying, no, this is not what I signed up for. I want out. And I felt like that my whole life, through the beginning of my recovery, through motherhood, through a really good marriage with someone I still enjoy after 31 years together. And yet this, I like to call it suicide the friendly ghost, because it would follow me around and I would think, I want to kill myself. And I would think, well, I could do it tomorrow. So it was really a one day at a time thing before I ever got into a program. And coming across, I took psychology. I took many psychology classes my first go around in college because it was interesting to me. I never encountered positive psychology at that time. I only heard about disorders, and depression was just a category and it wasn't a very interesting one. So you came over to my work and did a presentation, or we went off to a different place and you did a presentation. However that was, it changed my life. We did little exercises with other people about our different communication styles. I can't name any of them. That's why I have not got my master's. I'm not going back for my master's. I can't remember names. I can't remember communication styles. I can't remember very much about the green cape and the red cape and all these different things that are fascinating to me. But they're
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the important part for our listeners is that you may not remember the name or all of the specifics, but you remember the feeling and then the feeling that it brings to others.
Yes. And that is what I took. It has been an amazing journey with that. And I have depression. I take meds, I haven't seriously considered suicide in a very long time. So thanks, Doc. I appreciate that. I really do. And I'm glad you're still out there doing it. I bring positive psychology and positive recovery ideas into my work all the time. And it's just the little things like framing something in a certain way. People used to ask me how I was and I'd say surviving. I don't say that anymore. I'll tell the truth if they seem to want the truth. I don't just say surviving anymore. I try to think of something good.
Kira, how are you?
It's a good day today. It's a really good day today. The weather is nice. My allergies aren't too bad. And I get to talk to these people that I haven't seen in years and talk about a topic that I'm passionate about. And I get to hold hands with my guy. Yeah. And I don't have to wear pants, which is really a perk.
Gotta love those Zoom meetings.
Yeah. I may be wearing makeup, but I am not wearing pants.
I don't think Dr. Powers is either. He's got shorts on.
Yeah, we're wearing shorts.
I dressed up, wore jeans. Wow.
You
now
did.
I'm feeling fancy.
Yeah, I am wearing shorts. I could go out in public too. I like your shirt, by the way. I should have wear mine.
It is that soft cotton at the facility, which we now are going to open in Spicewood. There's some like triple extra large or whatever in the attic. And they're so popular. People are like wearing these tents, blowing in the breeze.
That is so cool. I'm glad they're still out there. Oh, just mine is very frayed, but I still wear it sometimes.
Well, if you don't mind wearing a house, we'll ship you a triple XL. But if you don't have a daily guide, we are going to send you the daily guide. We'll send you another.
Oh, we have matching books. There you go. And it's autographed by you, Dr. Powers, for our listeners.
Yes.
Taking a look at it. So
Yeah.
Yes.
Before we go into that, let's do a lightning round in just 1 second. What I find very uplifting about the two of you, and especially in telling us about yourself, is how much courage you have, not to express or admit all those hardships you went through and suicidal, the Casper, the friendly ghost. That's one thing. Okay. Yeah. You're showing courage, talking about these vulnerable things, but more that you guys walked through it and continue to walk through it, that you can talk about it now because you faced it and you tackled it one at a time. I mean, all the different, anonymous groups you've been through, Casey, I do think there's another one for you, and it's anonymous. It's for people that do too many 12-step groups. And I think
addiction by definition has to be causing problems in your life. So, when people are like, aren't we all addicted to oxygen and water? I'm like, well, are they killing you? Because if not, then don't worry about it.
There's a show. It's off the air now. It's called How I Met Your Mother. And do you like it? Did you see the one?
Yeah, I watched the
I
whole
heard
thing.
rumor.
Did you see you saw the one where they started intervening on each other?
Oh, they do that. I love that. They have these interventions for the weirdest things.
Well, yeah, the one episode where they were intervening on each other so much that at the end they all had an intervention on each other doing interventions.
Nice.
It was so brilliant. An intervention has helped them write it because the lingo is great. So, all right, Casey, we'll start with you.
Yes.
What is your favorite smell?
Oh, I'm not good at lighting. Kira will tell you I have a lousy sense of smell. For our podcast listeners, I'm going to say oranges.
Okay, least favorite smell.
Oranges after they've been
I was
processed.
going to say, don't say oranges. The only thing you can smell. Trust me, we had a baby together.
Not 100% true, but yeah. No, I was going to say oranges after they've been processed.
Got it. What's your favorite word?
Oh, hope.
Least favorite word?
Hopeless.
What turns you on?
Kira.
Good answer.
What turns you off? I would say Kira.
Not having Kira around.
This is what happens when we interview husbands and wives together, by the way. You guys aren't.
Oh, well, I was going to say, if you interview anybody who's married or in a long-term relationship or wants to stay in a long-term relationship, who figures out that their partner will be listening to the podcast later. It's amazing what people say on a microphone, like they think like no one's ever going to hear this.
Great advice. Okay. What occupation would you love doing if you weren't doing what you're doing now?
Film scoring.
Awesome. And what's one occupation that you would loathe doing?
With loathe doing?
Working in an orange factory.
No. That's actually a tough one. I actually had something in mind. I'm like, no, I could find a positive in that. Honestly, I'm trying to think.
I got one for you.
I was going to say executioner, but then I thought like I could be there like compassionately with the person in the last moments.
You are such an optimist.
Well, yeah, I'm a closet optimist. Actually, now I'm a blatant optimist. I used to like keep that hidden. Something I hate too much positive psychology and social work school, man. Sorry, I'm not coming up with anything.
Okay, no problem. And last question is like, assume there's a God. When you die, you're at the gates of heaven. What would you like to hear God say to you?
Come on in.
Okay. All right. Kira, what's your favorite smell?
I think it's still the top of my daughter's head after she washes her hair.
That's cool. Yeah. Even now at her age?
She lives with us, so yeah.
Oh, wow. So after she showers, she comes and gives you her dome?
No, she lets it dry first.
Okay, that's good.
And then I sneak up on her.
What's your
I've got to get video of this.
What's your least favorite smell?
The other end when she was really small.
Favorite food?
Chocolate.
Least favorite food?
It's harder to answer that because I never eat things that I don't like. So my least favorite food might be, beef stroganoff.
Okay.
It's something most people like, but I just never liked it. I don't like it.
Favorite word?
Favorite word? I had it and I forgot. So I'm going to say love because that's my second favorite word.
Least favorite word?
Boy, I had these like when Casey was being asked, they bam. You say lightning round and I go blank, stare at the little red light. My least favorite word, goodbye.
What turns you on?
What turns me on? Music.
Turns you off?
Pain.
And what occupation would you love doing if you weren't doing what you're doing now?
The one I was working on for 20 years and not actually getting paid much for.
Did you sing or play an instrument or?
I sang. He played all the instruments and he couldn't sing and I could sing, but I couldn't play the instruments well.
Right.
That's how we met.
And what occupation would you hate doing?
House cleaner.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Okay, assume there's a God. You're at heaven and the gates are there. And what would you like to hear from God?
I think I would just want God to hug me.
Okay, no words. Sound of silence. Action. Love it. Okay, Julie, it's all you.
Thanks, guys. That was fun listening to that. So we're going to open up with a quote from Neil Peart of Rush. How appropriate for two musicians that we have with us. All the world's indeed a stage, and we are merely players, performers, and portrayers, each another's audience outside the gilded cage. Throughout your life, you will assume various roles. Sadly, too many people are not aware they are the writers, directors, and actors in their own lives. You are the storyteller in your own life, and the roles you play are not deceptive. Instead, you craft your own identities by what you do and how you do it. The closer your self-identity is to your behavior, the more authentic you are. Integrity takes courage, but it is worthwhile. If you believe that you are in charge of yourself and that you are a capable agent of change, you're more likely to flourish and prevent relapse. So for today's positive intervention, what role are you playing today? Who are the other key players you are currently inviting into the story of your life? What sense are you making of favorable and unfavorable events? How is your life evolving? What's the purpose in your narrative? Is there anything within your personal realm of influence you would like to change? A change in the scenery, new key players, a different storyline? Journal your reflections on these questions and share your insight. So Casey, how was this for you?
This was fun. I wrote it over the last few days. I did a bunch of, actually, let me see here. I can probably pull it up. Well, I mean, the experience was just kind of fun. They're fun questions. As far as epiphanies, probably the biggest one said, what's the purpose in your narrative? And what I immediately came up with is I'm too close to it to tell. I'm too close to my own life to really say what the purpose is, because really, what the purpose of my journey, life, existence, whatever, is really a matter of perspective. Kira's idea of the purpose of my journey and my daughter's idea of the purpose of my journey would not only be different than mine, but they'll be different from each other. Some of my clients, the purpose of my journey is to show up in their lives for, a few weeks and hopefully be of help. Or I also see clients, in a private practice setting. So maybe over the course of a couple of years. So my purpose for them is, encapsulated in that hour a week. My mom's idea of my purpose of my life might be totally different. But I know that one of the number one ways that people find meaning and purpose is through service. So I come back to that, not just sort of to hack the system and say, okay, I'll be of service, so I feel like I have a sense of purpose, but to really try and tap into that and say, like, how can I show up in service? Not that I do this perfectly by any stretch, but I can take a swipe at it in my better moments, keep it consciously on my mind when I'm doing whatever I'm doing. That was probably the one that jumped out at me the most. I mean, my actual life is amazing and fantastic. There's, when I was like, do you want to change the key players? I'm like, well, it depends what you mean by like, do I want to swap them out for other people? Heck no. Do I try and change them through, conscious and unconscious manipulation and trying to get my way in a relationship? There are times when I totally do that. Open to feedback. So I know that those things come up, but in general, I would hope, of course, that I lift up and affirm the people that are closest to me and the key players in my life, whether they're my family or staff members that I work with or clients that I work with, people in recovery fellowships with me, stuff like that. Nothing where I think like, gosh, if I moved somewhere or just got all new people, I'd be better. Hopefully gotten past that one. Still back to that idea. I can always polish myself up a little bit more. And if there's a key player I need to work on, it's me. And that work probably never really ends. But even then, on a pretty large scale, I've become somebody that I love. That's something, going back to the growing up story, something I didn't know was possible. But I'm always working also on a creative project. And there was a little reminder in there that it's more like that kind of thing of like, okay, I'm always working on something. Kira and I do our podcast together. I'm working on a book. There's always the learning and creative process of working with people formally and informally, or I should say professionally and in non-professional settings. If I get chances to sponsor or, mentor other people, stuff like that.
What I love about this particular day's positive intervention is how applicable it is at any stage of life. And, if our listeners hadn't heard all the work that you've done and all the different arenas of life that you found where you weren't showing up and you weren't the player that you wanted to be, they would think, well, this guy didn't really gain anything from it, right? But if had you done this maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I'm not saying that it would like catapult you into something, but if you were to do it and try and reflect with whatever, I guess, tools you have at the moment, it's like little pieces can be revealed because, there's not one activity, one exercise, one dialogue that's going to change everything in your life. But there's so many different platforms at which you've delved into and sweated and cried and wrestled and then come out the other side that right now on the surface, it seems like you said something earlier that is really pregnant with meaning is that, one of the biggest ways people find purpose in this life is of service, and that you're not just going to be of service to hack the system, but that to really engage in it. I hope people appreciate how deep that is. Really, it's so profound because you could give in order to receive, or you could give, right? It's like, I love that. So yeah, Julie, that's sort of what went on for me.
All righty. I didn't write mine. I just thought mine. The role I'm playing today it is a day off in which I'm exhausted and I'm taking a day of rest. I get to be a mom and hang out with my kid. I get to be a star, a celebrity, and be on this Zoom call with you guys and get interviewed, which is rare. I get to be a consumer and go to the grocery store and stuff like that. The key players that I invite into the story of my life, I'm for today, it's you guys and my family and just whoever I happen to run across. I have a lot of key players that I've invited into my life by making friends with people that I work with, making friends with people that I do 12-step meetings with, and interacting with people that are just, friendly acquaintances and stuff, and my family who I'm in touch with. What sense am I making of favorable and unfavorable events? So one of the things that I don't have down yet is I can still catastrophize on the unfavorable stuff. We're in a so far unique time in our lifetimes. We weren't around for the 1918 influenza epidemic, but we're around for this, mid-COVID as this is being recorded. We've got a presidential election coming up very quickly that's been very polarizing for people. There's a lot going on in the country over that. There's the racial politics that have been so damaging to people's relationships and safety and all these issues. And, the fact that my daughter is technically but not legally disabled and will be uninsurable in 2 years if the ACA gets repealed. So things like that and things that I worry about, So I've been trying to stay away from the news and stuff. But if something comes up, I will go to the darkest scenario. And that's something that I still struggle with. For favorable events, it's very funny that I got promoted. I start my new job on Tuesday, day after tomorrow. I'm starting my new job.
Oh, congratulations.
I'll still be doing, as is very common at recovery facilities, I'm still doing the old job 3 days a week while I train for the new job 2 days a week. And I'll do that till they replace me in the old job. And then I don't have to make beds and take people's temperature anymore, which I will be really happy about that. So the favorable thing was, on the one hand, it was a huge relief as opposed to an exciting thing. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not very positive of me, but I'm still not all the way up to an optimist. I'm not built that way. I've worked very hard to get from like a -10 to a, hovering between a -2 and a +3. I'm not all the way there yet, but I do try. So, is the positive thing good enough? Is the favorable thing good enough? Whereas how bad is this other thing going to get? So that's the sense that I make out of those things. And then how my life is evolving and the purpose of my narrative. All these changes are happening now. All the weird world stuff plus my personal stuff. It's all, I guess the purpose of it is that I finally get to do what I'm best at. At my old job, I did the 2 years as a tech and then 4 years in admissions where I felt like I know what I'm doing. I'm great at this one part of it. And they're giving me more and more. I taught a class on positive recovery on fellowships out of the workbook that we have and all this cool stuff, and then I had to kind of start from scratch again for a year and a half. And now I get to, so I'm doing that again. And it's just, I think my narrative is, the purpose of my life. I did a workshop once on life purpose. And what I came up with is my purpose, my higher purpose is to use my voice to envelop others in comfort, love, and safety. And the funny thing is, the guy that was teaching the class that I took when I came up with that tried to get me to take out the part about my voice because he knew I was a singer. And I did some meditation on it like I was supposed to. And I said, nope, I'm leaving it in. And, my singing does envelop others in comfort, love, and safety, but my work envelops a lot more people, a lot more thoroughly in comfort, love, and safety. And so I found a way to do that. And it's just a different way of using my voice. And I love that.
I love it too.
Are you warm up enough to give us a short ditty?
A short ditty?
About Jack and Diane or anybody, really.
All right. Well, let's hear something.
You're songwriters. You want to hear a song? I got a song for you.
All right. Break it out.
Off of the wagon, onto the horse. I've been riding in my sleep again. Off of the wagon, onto the horse. I've been riding in my sleep again. Gotta watch the monkey when he says he's your friend.
Woo! I got goosebumps.
That's our using dream song.
Oh.
Yeah. It's out there. It's out there on YouTube and iTunes. Unfortunately, our band was called Third Door Down.
Oh.
And our first album came out 2 days before the first album of another little band called Three Doors Down. So if you look for us, you have to put in Third Door Down Off the Wagon to get the song. Because if you put in Third Door Down, you will not even find us.
Wow.
I think you find us on iTunes, but not YouTube. I'm not sure if that's still the thing.
And can you share the name of your podcast for our listeners?
Absolutely. So our podcast, which involves both of us, of course, and in which Kira uses her voice to envelop others in comfort, love, and safety, and then I chatter on as well, is called Addiction and the Family. I have to be careful in the way I talk. It sounds like addiction in the family, but it's addiction and, A-N-D, Addiction and the Family. You can find it everywhere podcasts are, or you can look at addictionandthefamily.info. Well, you can email us at addictionandthefamily@gmail.com. I grabbed everything that said addiction and the family that I could, but somebody took addictionandthefamily.com and they're not using it for anything, but neither are we. So the way of things. But that being said, yeah, so we got our podcast, and if you're ever looking for the band, it's called Third Door Down. We're available.
Awesome.
What can I tell you? It's a fun life.
It's a busy life.
It is.
It is. Casey and Kira, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been such a great time having you here for sure.
We enjoyed it very much.
This was a blast.
Well, anyway, thank you guys so much. It was great seeing you, great hearing you. Your voice and gave me goosebumps too. Powers and DeNova and the Arrillaga signing off.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Positive Recovery MD. Don't forget to visit positiverecoverymd.com to sign up to get your daily positive intervention sent straight to your inbox. Be sure to subscribe to Positive Recovery MD on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast to receive an automatic download when a new episode drops. And as always, if you or someone you know needs help, visit positiverecovery.com or call 877-4SOBRIETY, which is 877-476-2743. We are here to help.